out who the offensive coordinator will be. Plus, how does the Atlanta Falcons hiring maybe impact the Eagles? All that and more this hour here on Game Night 97.3 ESPN. Austin Krell, our Sixers insider from 97.3 ESPN.com. He'll be joining us coming up in less than 20 minutes from now. As always, you can join the conversation at 609 403 0973. That is the text board and your DMs into the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. So, a couple things I want to get to before we get to the Sixers with Austin coming up here in the hour. The Vic Fangio to Philadelphia story, I think, is one of the. It feels like this was meant to be. It almost feels like the football version of like that rom-com where like you got, the man or the woman, they used to date or be in love with somebody else, and then they get engaged, and then they run into the person who they used to be in love with for years. They haven't seen them for maybe like 10 years, and they come back into their life, and now all of a sudden they got to decide if they're going to like marry that person anymore or not. Like that's what I feel like the Vic Fangio situation is. And the reason I name a specific movie is because I feel like there's like 10 of those movies where it's like she hasn't seen him since college, or he hasn't seen her since they, broke up and he went off to the military and finally he came home, or like some Hallmark movie where it's like she hasn't been home for 15 years, but he looks exactly the same as she always remembered him. Whatever the storyline is, that's what Vic Fangio and the Eagles are. They were a couple that was meant to be, and then it just didn't happen. And they went their separate ways. And all of a sudden, they come back around and they find love together again. That's what Fangio and the Eagles feel like to me. I've always felt like when it comes to this Eagles organization, there is a type of person that they want in this organization. And frankly, I don't really care that there are people in Miami who are happy that Fangio is gone, because one, Miami didn't win anything. So what are you celebrating? Oh, what is this? The Wizard of Oz, which is dead. Let's have a parade for him. That's what they're acting like Fangio was down there. That defense overachieved considering all of their injuries and all of their problems. So, yeah, if the Dolphins going to celebrate that guy not being in the building anymore, that just shows you the type of culture and personality that they have down there. The reality is that the Fangio style of defense had an elite level of success in 2022. And the Eagles are attempting to reignite that flame. The Eagles are attempting to take that winning formula and bring it back for 2024. Now, it doesn't change the reality. They got to make some additions on this defense personnel-wise. But Fangio does make the defense better. How much better does he make the defense? Former NFL player and ESPN NFL analyst Mark Spears said this on NFL Live about what Fangio means to the Eagles defense.
We know Vic Fangio is a guy that is going to make sure there is coverage on the top of a defense. And the worst thing that the Philadelphia Eagles did, as much as we talked about all of the issues, is they couldn't cover a soul. So that should immediately get fixed. And it brings some continuity to what you know as a defensive coordinator. You went from Desai to Matt Patricia last year. Now you have a constant in the building.
Couple big takeaways there from that. Number one, he talks about how the Eagles couldn't cover a soul last season. And yes, at the end of the year, the defensive secondary got so bad and so poor, it was difficult to rationalize what was going on. Why did you make the change? How is this making the team better? And the Eagles still to this day, despite the fact that Howie and Nick spoke for 30 plus minutes yesterday, they never truly addressed how or why. And I mean a real how or why, not this fraudulent answers that they gave at the press conference in this, spin cycle of political analysts who are feeding words to them before they walked out onto the dais. No, it's the idea that you made a horrible mistake last season. And it wasn't just bringing in Sean Desai. It was not just changing midseason the Matt Patricia. It was not just letting TJ Edwards and Kazir White and Marcus Epps and CJ Gardner-Johnson all walk. No, it was a domino effect of all of those elements. It wasn't one versus the other. I'm still convinced to this day that if Philadelphia would have at least kept Marcus Epps and TJ Edwards, we might not be in this predicament. Because for as much as I can complain and pick apart and tear down the way they called the defense last season, I can also at the same time say the personnel wasn't good enough. So I believe Fangio is going to come in and he is going to push the organization to make certain personnel changes. Why do I believe that? I believe that because Howie Roseman himself said this yesterday at the press conference.
The most important thing we got to do is we got to have a vision for how we want it to look. We have to have a process that we want to have. And sometimes you can have a vision, you can have a process, and the result's not what you want, And so you got to make sure that you're not overreacting to a result that, maybe just kind of was an aberration in the moment. And then you got to look at maybe is the process right? So I think just like coaches going through that, I think that's one of the things we're real about around here. How can we get better? What can we do better to improve ourselves?
Howie told you right there, the Eagles don't think it's necessary to blow it all up. The fans may be tired of Sirianni. The fans may be unhappy with a lot of things. And the fans, you guys listening to the sound of my voice on 97.3 ESPN FM and on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle, wherever you're listening, thank you for listening tonight on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. All of you have every right to be frustrated and happy. But the Eagles and Howie Roseman and that organization believes that last season in some ways was an aberration. And they believe that there's a method and there's a process that works. So if there's a method and a process that works, then this organization seems to believe that going with Vic Fangio can still win you ball games. Now, that's just the one side of the ball. We'll see what he does on the other side of the ball. You guys have heard my opinion. I think Cliff Kingsbury would be the best option. That's my personal perspective because of what his offense is and what he has done with quarterbacks already as a coach. Look, Caleb Williams, Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray have all been coached by this guy. Do we really believe that's a coincidence? I don't. So for me, I like Kingsbury. I can do a half hour just on Kingsbury. All right. But you saw this morning, as we wrote at 97.3 ESPN.com, Kellen Moore. He's another guy they're talking to. Kellen Moore fits the mold of what Nick Sirianni said why they got rid of Brian Johnson.
So it's about coming up with fresh ideas and doing some things different. And that's exactly where we are right now. And Brian being, at that position, unfortunately, he's the one that is leaving at this particular time. But I can't tell you how much I appreciate him as a coach. We've had a lot of success here in the past 3 years, and Brian's contributed a lot to that. But like I said, it's now about bringing in fresh ideas.
And he said fresh ideas numerous times during the presser. That's the phrase of the offseason. Kellen Moore brings you fresh ideas, right? He comes from an offense that pushes the ball down the field, has been criticized for maybe being a little too pass happy at times, but he is an aggressive play caller. He is somebody who you look at who has worked with, it has been offensive minded head coaches who are not the best game managers, but do have a keen eye for how to amplify the talent of their offensive players. Is Moore my choice? No. In fact, if I had to rank everyone right now, and the main names are Johnson, the quarterback coach from the Texans, he's at the bottom of my list. The next guy above him, I honestly would go Frank Reich, because Frank Reich, I think, is a good coach, but I don't know if at this point in his life, Frank Reich wants to deal with what is going to be required of him as an offensive coordinator for this organization. To me, it's a coin flip between Reich and Moore. It's a personal preference. I think Reich showed you that him and Sirianni together did a good job at winning games with multiple different quarterbacks. Andrew Luck, Jacoby Brissett, Phillip Rivers. So if you want to tell me that tandem can work again, all right, I can buy into that. But on the flip side, I think Kellen Moore has shown you that when he was in Dallas, two of the best offensive seasons for the Dallas Cowboys in the past few years have been with Kellen Moore as an offensive coordinator. Then after that, Jim Bob Cooter, I think, is interesting because he is somebody who has also worked with a plethora of different people. And I think that he has a familiarity. I don't like the fact he doesn't bring. I don't know. That's why I like Kingsbury as my number one. Kingsbury is my number one option because he is the guaranteed most fresh ideas humanly possible. Text board is open, 609-403-0973. Jeff in Ocean City asks about Joel Embiid. Well, we're going to ask that question to Austin Krell, our Sixers insider from 97.3 ESPN.com next here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM. Don't forget to download the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle City.
This Sunday, Westwood One brings you Championship Sunday. First, it's the AFC title game. Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs face Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. Then, the Detroit Lions aim for their first ever Super Bowl appearance when they take on the San Francisco 49ers. Doubleheader coverage begins at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. If it's the NFL playoffs, it's right here.
Listen to Championship Weekend on 97.3 ESPN. Coverage begins at 2 p.m.
Imagine having skin so soft and so smooth that you can't stop touching it. Well, now you can have that thanks to the amazing Lutronic Laser Facial Rejuvenation Service from Dr. Lyle M. Back in Cherry Hill. The Lutronic Laser erases fine lines and roughness, softens deeper lines, and firms up the skin, leaving your face glowing, radiant, and rejuvenated all in about an hour's time. It's a new year, so treat yourself. Call 856-MAKEOVER or visit ilovelylback.com.
Cashback is not available on gas in New Jersey and Wisconsin.
Hey, good morning. You're heading to the airport, right?
Yep, thanks for checking. I like the car. How long have you been a rideshare driver?
About 3 years now. I really enjoy it.
Isn't it hard to make money these days with the price of gas being so high?
Not for me. I use Upside, the free app that gives you cash back for every gallon of gas you buy.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you actually get real money back when you get gas with the Upside app?
Yep, I get real cash back every time I get gas.
Does that actually add up to anything?
I'll make around $200 to $300.
Wow, that's serious extra cash. I'm downloading the Upside app now.
Download Download the free Upside app now to earn real cash back every time you buy gas. For a 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code GEAR.
What's that sound? That's the sound of Downy Unstoppable scent beads going into your washing machine and giving your clothes freshness that lasts all day long. There it is again. It's like music to your ears, or more like music to your nose. That freshness is irresistible. Let's get a Downy Unstoppable bottle shake. And now a sniff solo. Nice. Get 6 times longer lasting freshness plus odor protection with Downy Unstoppables in wash scent beads.
Winter is here, and in South Jersey, that means the cold winds are a-blowing. Whether you need a brand new roof or the gusts off the ocean blew off some shingles, Sea Point Roofing and Siding is here to help. Their expert team ensures that you and your home stay warm and dry, but you won't just get a secure roof, you'll get peace of mind. Sea Point Roofing and Siding is South Jersey's premier roofing company where dependability meets excellence. Visit them at Sea Point.
Out of your parents' place, you could really cut expenses by bundling your car and renter's insurance with Progressive, which is good because your little brother has gotten really territorial. You're blood related. You'd think it would be fine to share food in the fridge. I mean, who writes their name on every individually wrapped slice of cheese, Tyler? Still, you've got to admire the commitment. So bundle your renter's and car insurance with Progressive and use the savings to help you move out and have all the cheese you want. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Coverage provided and serviced by affiliates and third-party insurers. Not available in all states.
97.3 ESPN has teamed up with Seize the Deal for incredible weekly offers from some fantastic local restaurants. Here's this week's big deal.
Get a $50 gift card, good for use at Chico & Sons in Northfield for just $25.
Get this great deal starting Friday at 9 a.m. at SeizeTheDeal.com. Hurry, chances are this deal will sell quickly. For more info on this great deal, go to SeizeTheDeal.com.
SeizeTheDeal.com. This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
Sixers back in action tonight here on 97.3 ESPN. How does Joel Embiid follow up that 70-point night? It's not just Jeff from Ocean City asking, it's every Sixer fan who wants to know, and the man who's going to attempt to answer that right now, our Sixers insider from 97.3 ESPN. I got Austin Krell is back. We're on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Austin, welcome in. How you doing today?
Doing well, Josh. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you jumping on. So what is a realistic expectation of Joel Embiid tonight?
Are there any unrealistic expectations of Joel Embiid on any given night anymore? Like the guy's averaging 36, 12, and 6. I mean, I don't think it gets – if it does get any better than him, it doesn't get much better than him. I think this is a team that has more established big men and big men who are a little bit more chiseled than what the Spurs had to offer. But Joel has had no problem, bodying this, Isaiah Jackson and Miles Turner and Jalen Smith in the past. So I think you look for them to be in foul trouble. It's going to be another game where Joel is at the free throw line, like he always is. It could be, without Halliburton there to really push the pace. It could very well be another night where he is, able to get comfortable early on, slow the game down, and just dominate.
You mentioned about, this team, the Pacers, is going to give them a little more. Well, there's a guy on the Pacers that I would have loved to see in a Sixers uniform, and he's not. That's Pascal Siakam. What are your thoughts on how does Siakam benefit the Pacers long term? And two, where do the Sixers go as more and more guys get names knocked off the potential trade list?
So I think like what you've seen so far with the Siakam deal, with the Anunoby deal, And even with like Kawhi getting his extension, free agency, especially for star players, doesn't really happen anymore. It's just not trendy right now. Guys are if teams know that the guys aren't going to stay, or that it's at least questionable that a guy is going to stay long term, they'd rather recoup some security and get some value back for him via trade, send him to a team who wants to pay up for him, and therefore the player is likely to get his payday from that team because they've given up quite a bit of equity to get him, and therefore they have incentive to pay him whatever it takes to keep him. So a team like Indiana, a team like New York, they're not just trading for those two Raptors players respectively for this season. This is a 4 or 5 year thing that they are trying to establish a core for their respective franchises. So Siakam is not just about winning a title this year. They know, I think they're realistic. They know that their chances of getting through, Boston, Philly, Milwaukee, in any order is probably not great. But this is about next year, the year beyond, and so on and so forth. And then what it says about the Sixers, quite frankly, I don't think this says much particularly about them, because the whole point of their plan was to like have options and be open to a lot of different scenarios, whether that be trading for an available high level player before the deadline, having cap space in the summer to go and sign a guy outright, or with that cap space, you can also trade for a guy in the offseason, and teams can sign and trade, or if a guy becomes available, to have your money open to take that guy in. I think a lot of what gets discounted by the public or the people who maybe are not as in tune with the CBA aspect of the NBA. With this new CBA and the second layer of the tax apron, teams, owners are going to be saying, like, why are we handicapping ourselves when we know that we don't have a realistic shot or a realistic path to doing something special in this next season? And if we don't have that path, why are we keeping this group of players together? And so this offseason has a chance to really see some chaos in the NBA with teams offloading contracts and players that are good players, but they just aren't realistically part of an ensemble for that current team to make a run at something. And so that's when the Sixers have a chance to be really opportunistic. And it's not something that gets thought about right now, because right now it's like Joel Embiid is playing out of his mind. Tyrese Maxey is a budding star. Why aren't they going for it right now, right in the here and then? And I think the answer is like, it doesn't have to. It can be both. You can have your cake and eat it too, or have your pie and eat it too. You can trade for a guy for the deadline, and then you can have ways to open up cap space, or to have the flexibility to go and pursue a guy in the offseason too.
I love that you said that, because it's not like, you're right, it doesn't have to be one or the other. You can do both. You can improve the team's short term and long term. And to me, that's why you got all the expiring contracts. That way you have the options, plural, not just there's only one way to paradise. No, for the Sixers, there's you're coming to an intersection, but there's more exits along the way, so, and you can get back onto the interstate if you need to.
I will say this, like in terms of team building, right, in this day and age, when you have as many expiring contracts as they have, whether it be Tobias Harris for Concord Mize, all the guys they brought in the Harden trade, it is incumbent upon you to use those expiring salaries to your advantage. Teams that are not good are happy to take on those salaries in exchange for a good player, as long as it means that you're giving up a pick. So I do think like they will make a move of substance, because they have too much expiring money to just let it all go to waste. Like there is incentive for the Sixers to make a deal just for this, just for the in the sense that like we have a bunch of money available to us that is teams would happily eat if it means getting a pick back. We can't just let this go by the wayside.
Talking with Austin Krell, our Sixers insider. Check out all of his work over at 97.3 ESPN.com, at NBA Krell on the Twitter X platform. So with that being said, if you have these expiring contracts, if you were talking to Daryl Morey right now, what would you say are the expiring contract or contracts that makes the most sense to move for a player?
So It's a tough question to ask because I think this coach in particular is so much more willing to be like positionally versatile with his rotations. Like it isn't like it isn't just like he's playing a guy at one single spot and only that one spot where it's like we don't have like, there's no real use for that player there. Trade him. Like they're using Marcus Morris at the 4 and the 5, and he can have more utility at the 4 than he can at the 5. And if we're talking about, like maybe we can't really use Marcus Morris in this role, but we've been using him a different way that also works for us pretty well. Suddenly, it's like not as cut and dry as like this guy can't really offer us much. Get rid of him, right? So I would say for the Sixers, if I'm talking to Daryl Morey, I would say like Robert Covington has not been in your rotation very much at all. He's relatively limited in what he can do offensively, although the defense has been pretty good this season. That is a salary that I would be interested in moving. I think Marcus Morris's shooting has been a nice addition for this team. His ability to shoot out of the post has been really helpful for them in terms of just leveraging mismatches and using those. I am lower on trading him now than I would have been, say, a month, 2 months ago. But if you have a deal available to you that improves your team, say a Bojan Bogdanovic or a Bogdan Bogdanovic, and that's the money that you need to get one of those two deals done, then yeah, I would trade Morris too.
Do you have a preference between the Bogdanoviches, even though they're not related?
So I'm very hesitant to pick against Bojan, the one in Detroit, because I think as much as people want to write off his defense in his mid-30s, also like he's like on a night-to-night basis, he just isn't playing for much. Like that team is awful. When you're playing for a bad team, the details tend to slip a little bit because you're like, what's the point? We're not going to win the game anyway. Who cares? But having said that, Bogdanovic in Atlanta has been tremendous this season. His shooting would be a welcomed addition to this team. His gravity as a shooter, scorer, cutter would be really, really helpful. And I think that is a guy, if the price is right, I would certainly pick if I had to pick between the two.
I mean, not like that either team is going to hate getting expiring contracts. I mean, both those teams both teams have dumpster fires, Atlanta and Detroit, just different types of dumpster fires. One team can't win a game and the other team looks lost in translation. So, I mean, it's not like either team, right, Austin, is going to be like, no, I don't want expiring contracts.
Well, the thing is this then, like you're getting into a bidding war if it gets closer to the deadline, and in a team like the Lakers, it doesn't have enough shooting, or some other team says like, I will give you this, this, and this just to get Bogdanovic in here. Suddenly, it's a bidding war, and then I don't know that either guy is good enough to where you're like, I'll just throw this pick on the table and see what they say.
Interesting. Austin Krell talking with us here about the Sixers, what's going on with them as Joel Embiid scored 70 points the other night, but now the question is, well, what's next for the Sixers as we get closer and closer to that deadline, which is conveniently or inconveniently, Austin, depending on who you ask, the week of the Super Bowl. So, that was always a big consternation for us last year because Mike Gill's at the Super Bowl last year. He goes every year for Super Bowl week. Well, the Eagles are in the Super Bowl last year, and it's like, oh, and by the way, the NBA trade deadline is on Thursday. At least this year, we can focus on the Sixers without the distraction of the Eagles in the Super Bowl.
Well, shouldn't say fortunately. I don't know what's going to happen, but unlike in 2022, when they got Harden, there was a lot less on the line at the trade deadline than there is now. So I think he can go to the Super Bowl and not have to worry about missing something earth-shattering.
Austin, I want to follow up with you. You tweeted the other day about the coaching situation with the Sixers, and I want to give you an opportunity to expound upon that because it's been a fascinating back and forth. You see the fans on social media, all of us here on 97.3 ESPN, myself, Mike Gill, we're all kind of bantering around the idea that, Nick Nurse could have been the Bucks head coach. Doc Rivers is now the Bucks head coach, and that whole thing is snake oil salesman out the wazoo, how he got that job.
You could have stopped after snake is what you could have stopped after. That's a whole different story. I'll say that tangent for a different time.
But the wildness of it feels like if you ask the regular Sixer fan, Austin, they feel like man, Nick Nurse is the coach we've always wanted for this team. And he almost had Giannis as his guy instead of Embiid. And it's just like, the inches, the 6 degrees of separation. The now it's almost a blessing in disguise that Doc Rivers is the Milwaukee coach, because Milwaukee won't get out of the second round now.
So here's what I would say. This is going to come off as dramatic and like overstated. I'm not so sure it is. I think one of the biggest, most important, impactful moves that the Sixers made this past offseason, for not just now, but for the next 2 or 3 or 4 years, was hiring Nick Nurse. I think he has been so good for this. And I mean, and that isn't like, I have had criticism that I've written, in stories about Nick Nurse. Like, there have been moments where I've questioned him, but by and large, he has been outstanding for this team. He has made Joel better just in terms of the concepts they're running, the principles they're trying to follow on the court. His adjustments, his ability to throw different things out there on the floor has truly been a breath of fresh air, and I think has revitalized a team that looked to be in some trouble as with James Harden on the verge, asking out and whatnot. So I think that we can't overstate how critical it was that Nick Nurse, whether it was because he knew he wasn't getting the job or not, decided to opt out of the running for the Milwaukee job. That not only did that change the Bucks this season and beyond, it might have changed the entire Eastern Conference this season and beyond, because we don't know, if they're sitting at 500 right now, or if Joel is not bought into what they're doing right now, who knows where they are, and who knows if Joel asks for a trade, in the coming days, weeks, months after the season. I think that in some ways you could make a very strong case that hiring Nick Nurse might have saved this franchise from the end of the Embiid era. And in terms of the Milwaukee Bucks, and I'm sorry I have to do this, but I have to do this because I'm just mad. And this has been driving me crazy.
Go for it.
This has been driving me crazy for days. I had respect for Doc Rivers, and I felt that he was criticized pretty harshly and could do nothing right, basically, in this city. And I had no qualms with him, going to ESPN, whatever. I think it is spineless, and I think it is disgusting that he said, I'm going to come in and be an advisor to this young first-time head coach who had been working his tail off for over a decade to get an NBA head coaching job. And within a month of me signing on to be his advisor, I am going to just take the job over for him. I don't care if Adrian Griffin gave Doc his blessing and said, go for it. Like, I have no problem with you doing it. It is so ridiculously backstabbing and just dishonorable to just, within 24 hours of the guy being fired after a 30-13 start, to just sign a contract, take over the reins. I lost, if not all of the remaining respect I had for Doc, I lost most of it, because that is completely words I can't say on air is what that is. Words I cannot say on air.
Well, what we can say on air is this. It's so bizarre that Milwaukee ever hired Adrian Griffin in the first place. Because remember, the whole narrative was when Nick Nurse pulled out, like, I remember the people on like the national shows like NBA Today and TNT's Inside the NBA. The whole conversation was, well, it was Inside the NBA, but it was on NBA TV. It was Shaq and Ernie on their show. I forget the name of the show off the top of my head, but I was watching NBA TV, and the whole narrative was, well, if Nick Nurse is not going to be the coach, who's going to be the coach? And then it was, but Giannis likes Griffin. Remember that whole thing? Giannis likes Adrian Griffin. And it's like, this organization now has fired multiple coaches that Giannis likes. Remember, Giannis liked Jason Kidd. They fired him.
It's true.
Then he was very happy with Mike Budenholzer. They fired him. Then supposedly he loves Adrian Griffin. And what was it? 5 months later, they fire him. Like, at what point is your superstar? Like, we talk about, is Embiid, what is his expiration point with Philadelphia? What is the expiration point for Giannis in Milwaukee, Austin?
Well, I would say this. Giannis has largely skated by with, like, because he won a championship and he's a likable personality, so he doesn't get as much flack. That guy has been part of very high profile playoff flameouts, whether it be the Heat series last year, where they were the 1 seed and got boat raced in 5 games, whether it be the Heat series in the bubble, where they were the 1 seed and got boat raced in, I think it was 5 games again. The Nets came within one toenail of beating literally, because Kevin Durant's shot was a long 2 instead of a 3, and that shot would have won the series, but it was counted as a 2. If that counts as a 3, he has no championship at all. So Giannis has said things along the lines of, this is not a failure; it's a step to success. After getting humiliated by the Heat last season, and then a couple weeks ago, he says everyone's got to be better. The equipment manager has to watch our stuff better. How about you committed to a coach? You said you liked the coach, right? Fine. At least buy into what he wants you to do on the court. Don't 5 games into the season be like, this isn't the way we do things around here. Don't, there has been talk about how Giannis and Dame, Giannis isn't exactly bought into being a screener in the 2-man game for Dame. Whose fault is that? That's not Adrian Griffin's fault. Whose fault? Right. If you're going to give a guy a chance, at least give him a real chance, and don't just be like, we hired you because Giannis likes you. We hired you, and the reporting on this so far has been that Giannis and the Bucks said, "Hey, we don't think that Dame is going to be here, and we don't know what the future holds for Giannis. So we didn't expect to have this type of pressure on us when we hired you." That's not his fault. You shouldn't have hired him in the first place. Then it's ridiculous. It's an embarrassing moment for that organization. You have 3 head coaches under contract right now, and only one is coaching your team. It's awful.
It's the only comparable thing we have in sports is the Carolina Panthers are doing the same thing. The Panthers, for those who don't know or remember, they had Matt Rule on a 5-year contract, fired him. They had Frank Reich on a multi-year contract. They fired him. They just hired a new coach today. So it's like, hey, by the way, guess what? You know what, Austin? You know what the commonality between the Panthers and the Bucks is? They both have ownerships that have histories of firing people. Because now Dave Tepper keeps firing people. Jimmy Haslam now, from last time I checked, is the guy in charge of the Bucks, and that guy hasn't exactly been coach friendly with the Browns. So I don't foresee a lot of stability in Milwaukee moving forward.
And it's funny because, like, if you read the stories that have come out in the last couple of days, the one from ESPN was like Adrian Griffin signed on to be the coach of the Bucks, and his final interview was with Drew Holiday, Giannis, I think it was Chris Middleton, and that's pretty important because his vision involves maybe the best defensive guard in the NBA. So then, what do? You trade away that guard for Damian Lillard, and that's fine. I'm not saying you don't do that, but you should probably expect that the guy whose vision involved a defensive stalwart guard was gonna have some growing pains when you trade that guy away, that linchpin of his defensive concepts away for a guard in Damian Lillard who cannot defend anything. Of course, you were going to have bumps in the road along the way because you just because the one pillar of that guy's idea was just taken away on the day before training camp started. He was completely. I don't care if you have Giannis, you have Dame, whatever. You were set up for failure in that situation.
Austin, before I let you go, obviously the Sixers, they got to play tonight. They got to play on Saturday. Again, we'll recycle it back. Not the expectation for Embiid. What is the expectation for the Sixers? Pacers tonight, Nuggets on Saturday. 2 teams that are among the better teams. I know Halliburton's not playing tonight, but they still have Siakam, and he's a stud. So Pacers tonight, Nuggets Saturday.
Well, you don't have Tobias tonight, so I think it becomes a bit more of a difficult game. You're going to need all hands on deck. You should be able to beat the Pacers because they don't have Halliburton, and then you have an 8-game winning streak you have a 7-game winning streak on the line against Denver. As of now, all signs point to Joel playing. I think if Joel can beat Denver in Denver, that's going to go along. If he's serious about winning MVP to number 2, which I don't think he is, but any player who thinks that they have a chance at an award is going to pursue that because they're competitors. If Joel can win that game in Denver on Saturday, it's going to go a long way towards him being a surefire candidate or a surefire front runner to win the MVP, assuming he meets the threshold for games played.
He's Austin Krell, covers 76ers for us at 97.3 ESPN.com. Follow him on Twitter X at NBA Krell. Austin, appreciate you jumping on. Enjoy the game tonight.
Thanks, Josh.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank. And see how coming up the other side, George from Summers Point. We got Dan from EHT among those messaging in. Of course, the text board is open 609-403-0973. Your DMs into the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle. So yes, you download the app for free. Just search 973 ESPN wherever you get your apps for your smartphone or device.
It's Sixers basketball tonight on 97.3 ESPN with the voice of the Sixers, Tom McGinnis, calling all the exciting play-by-play action.
Joel into the lane, gets around Jokic, and he laid it up and good. He pulled a Euro on Jokic, and Embiid scores it.
It's Sixers Pacers tonight. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. It's Sixers basketball all season long on South Jersey's radio home for Philadelphia 76ers basketball. 97.3 ESPN.
Save thousands at Matt Blatt Kia. Get out of your old trade today, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. Go to mattblattkianj.com for more details. That's mattblattkianj.com.
It's gotta be a
Matt Blatt Kia.
Some people just know there's a better way to do things, like bundling your home and auto insurance with Allstate, or hiring someone to move your piano instead of doing it yourself. So, do things the better way. Bundle home and auto and save up to 25% with Allstate.
Bundled savings vary by state and are not available in every state. Saving up to 25% is the countrywide average of the maximum available savings off the home policy. Allstate Vehicle and Property Insurance Company and affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
Open enrollment is happening right now, New Jersey. Join the many residents who are getting quality, affordable health coverage through Get Covered New Jersey. If you need health insurance, this is the time to enroll. Get Covered New Jersey offers increased plan choices and more savings than ever. 9 in 10 people get financial help for plans that include preventive care, prescriptions, emergency services, and more. And many pay $10 a month or less. Find your plan at getcovered.nj.gov.
If you're trying to quit drinking or doing too many drugs, listen to me. You don't know me and we'll never meet. I had a problem like you once. I drank and used to party a little too much till it got out of control and almost ruined my life. I realized I needed help to fix my problem before it totally destroyed me. If you've tried to fix your drinking and drug problem and you know you can't do it alone, you need to call the National Treatment Advisors. They'll immerse you into a 30-day program to replace your old habits with new habits and totally change your life. And if you have PPO private health insurance, the entire program may be covered. Fix your problem right now before it gets any worse. Get clean. Call now and learn more.
800-309-2677. 800-309-2677. 800-309-2677. That's 800-309-2677.
Hi, this is Brighton Richards from Apex East Roofing. You know, the blonde-haired girl in the pink truck. If you've been having issues with your roof from all the rain over the last few weeks, or if you're just worried about leaks from upcoming storms this winter, give us a call. We can be at your house within 24 to 48 hours for an estimate and install a new roof within 1 to 7 business days. We also do emergency tarping and repairs, as well as siding and gutters.
Get a price on your roof in 30 seconds at ApexEastRoofing.com.
It seems like everywhere you look right now, someone is sick. This year, prepare your family for airborne invaders like bacteria, pollen, and yes, germs with Navage Nasal Care. Navage flushes ultra-pure, refreshing saline in one nostril, around the back of the nose, and out of the other nostril. Navage sucks out viruses, dust, and other airborne particles, all the stuff that gets trapped in your nose, making you miserable. Don't get caught empty-handed this winter. Get Navage, the drug-free solution that helps you breathe easier, sleep better, and feel healthier. Even better, Navage is HSA, FSA eligible. So Navage is a great way to spend those funds before they expire. Don't wait a minute longer. Buy Navage today and you'll breathe easier knowing you're putting your funds to good use. Navage is available online at Navage.com or Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, and Rite Aid. Navage, Navage. Clean nose, healthy life.
Hey, Jen, I just stopped in to say hello, and oh my goodness, look how busy it is in here. How do you get all these customers?
Yeah, this month has been a record breaker for us. For a long time, we had decent business coming in from word of mouth, but we weren't growing. Lately, though, a lot of new folks have been finding us online, and that's made all the difference.
That's terrific, man. I wish I could figure out how to do that for my shop, but I have no idea where to start.
Just do what I did. It's not as hard as you think. Go to mylocalcustomers.com to see exactly how many searches there are for businesses like yours. If you see that there are a good number of clients searching in our area, you'll also get some suggestions for the best way to get their attention.
Do you think there are a lot of people searching for my business?
There's only one way to find out. Go to mylocalcustomers.com. It's quick, easy, and free.
Go to mylocalcustomers.com for a free local customer analysis that will show you how many customers are searching online for your type of business. It's quick, easy, and free. Visit mylocalcustomers.com. That's mylocalcustomers.com.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and on the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Get your thoughts, guys. Thoughts and comments. Just a moment. Text board is there at 609-403-0973. Before I get to the text, I did want to address something because, I'm seeing a lot of people on social media sharing the Drew Rosenhaus video or audio, or I'm not even fully sure where it came from, honestly, but basically Drew Rosenhaus is accusing Vic Fangio of being very unliked by players in Miami. Now, Drew Rosenhaus represents players, so he's never actually going to completely tell the truth in these situations. And I just want to bring up the fact that I think all of this stuff about Fangio being unliked and guys being happy he's gone, I think it's a bunch of horse manure. Okay? I think it's the dumbest thing in the world for me to care what somebody who divorced somebody else or after a breakup, I don't care what you have to say within the first 72 hours of the breakup. There's a lot of emotion that goes into that stuff. All right? I have, and I know it's in professional football, but I have worked with a lot of people in my life that I felt differently about them from the 48 hours after they no longer worked with me compared to the next 48 weeks later that I worked with them. Feelings and emotions change over time because as time progresses, you take your emotion out of the situation. One of the things they teach you, if you ever take a course in psychology in college, one of the classes I took was called social psychology. And in social psychology, they talk about how if someone is not inclined to be an objective individual, and there's someone who tends to be emotionally led, that you need to give them time to process what they are going through or dealing with before you take what they say to heart. So I am not going to take what these Miami players or Drew Rosenhaus is saying about Vic Fangio to heart. The reality is that people around the NFL know, the Miami players did know this, then they're a bunch of children. But the NFL knows from a guy who's been around the league for a very long time, he is a strict disciplinarian style of coach. He is all about accountability. He is all about holding people accountable for what they say and do. I am not going to sit here and judge Vic Fangio off of the opinions of players on a team that displayed themselves half the year to be soft, to be about themselves, and to be more interested in putting on a showcase for Hard Knocks than they were at times about football. And I'll leave it at that. Text board is open, 609-403-0973. Dan in EHC says, does this feel like one more and done for Sirianni? Only if Sirianni falls on his face, Dan EHT. I don't think that the Eagles kept Sirianni just because. I think that there is a belief in the organization that they hired this guy for a reason, and you bring him in for a reason. So if he's here for a reason, it doesn't matter who they hire as defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, if you are intent on believing in this guy. If this guy is here for a reason, then you're also hiring the people around him for a reason. That's how I look at it. Sirianni is only one and done if he falls on his face. If the Eagles start the year 1-5, 2-6, finish the year 8-9, and it wasn't a bunch of injuries that imploded them or doomed them, then I think, that's the only way Sirianni doesn't come back. I think as of right now, they're putting Sirianni in a position to succeed and not fail. George Summers Point Chimes says, hey, Josh, I am kind of tired of hearing all the Eagles' drama with their coaching ranks and front office. It's almost as bad as those rom-com movies you were talking about earlier in the show. I have another football question to take my mind off of that for a few minutes. Do you think that Detroit has an actual chance against San Francisco this weekend and go to the Super Bowl? They definitely have a chance, George and Summers Point, because here's the aspect that people don't talk about Detroit enough. We'll get into more of this tomorrow when I'm filling in for Mike Gill on the Sports Bash from 2 to 6 on 97.3 ESPN. What people don't talk about enough about the Detroit Lions, they are a football team. They are not a one individual operation. When you are a football team and not a one-man operation, you are more likely to have success. Dan Campbell has done an amazing job. Speaking of a coach who doesn't call his own plays like Sirianni, Dan Campbell has done a great job at galvanizing, leading, inspiring, and empowering his players and his coaches to be successful. And I think that the one problem that Kyle Shanahan has shown in his NFL coaching career, whether it was with Atlanta with the Falcons or in San Francisco with the 49ers, he has shown himself multiple times to be a man who lets ego get in the way. And if Shanahan's ego gets in the way again on Sunday, the Lions will not just bite his kneecaps, they will take his 49ers down. Mike from Marmora will be the final message we get in here on the messages here on GameNight on 97.3 ESPN. He says, hey, Josh, I really don't get what Sirianni did for himself. He basically admitted he can't call an offense, even though it's his offense that went stale, and now he's a culture builder. If when he gets fired, not only will he not get another head coaching look, but he's admitted he's not qualified as a coordinator. Here's the problem, Mike and Marmora. As I mentioned, there are coaches in this league who have been successful and not being play callers. I think if Sirianni can continue to groove out this role as a CEO head coach, and if he keeps winning games, look, if Sirianni wins double-digit games for the next few years, I don't think he's going to get fired. I think he only falls apart and gets fired if the team collapses and falls in the face next year. Yes, it is a huge coaching gamble, as you said. But I do think that him admitting that he can't call plays is his way of saying, I'm admitting I have a problem and I'm trying to fix it. We have no idea if it actually will be fixed.
Hey, South Jersey, this is Billy Schwein. Tune into The Locker Room every Saturday and Sunday from 10 a.m. to noon on 97.3 ESPN. Each weekend in The Locker Room, you will get passionate sports talk from a fan's perspective, along with interviews with some of the biggest names in sports. That's every Saturday and Sunday from 10 a.m. to noon in The Locker Room with me, Billy Schwein, on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, because nothing could be finer than talking sports with a Schweiner.